What's up everyone, this is Aaron from Studio 3B. Today I wanted to bring to you part 2 of my detailed Hackintosh tutorial. If you haven't already seen my first one, please click up in the upper corner to see the previous video. Today we're going to do the installation and post install of macOS on a Hackintosh PC. So first things first, I've disconnected all my hard drives except for the one I want to install on. In my last video I said I was going to do a hybrid SSD disk, but this is actually just going to be an actual full-fledged SSD. I've changed my mind on that one, but I've got the USB inserted into the computer and I'm going to power it on. Okay, once again in the BIOS, when it comes up, just click delete. Make sure you go through your BIOS settings to get to the installer in the first place. There's certain settings that are going to work. Sometimes you even need to update and flash your whole entire BIOS. So just research in Google about your particular BIOS, your particular version of your BIOS, which you can see up here, and which motherboard you're working with, and all the other things that are pertinent, such as your CPU type and your memory, and all these things that play a factor. So but what you would normally do is just go to advanced mode to configure these things, and you go to advanced and you just make sure all the settings, your USB configuration needs to be a certain way and things like that. But please go through your detailed document in the D'Artagnan guide for more information. So I'm going to go back to the main BIOS settings, and I'm going to go to boot menu, and here you'll see I have the PNY SSD. That's the one I'm going to use to install on. Then you have SanDisk, but I'm a UEFI motherboard, so I am going to use the UEFI SanDisk target, and that is the macOS installer that we configured in the first video. Okay, we've reached the selection menu, so just press enter on the USB external DMG selection. Okay, now you successfully reached the installer like we did in the first video, except this time I only have the one drive I'm going to install macOS on is connected. That way there's no confusion as to where you're putting your operating system. So the first things first, go to Disk Utility, and then you want to go up to the View and select Show All Devices. Select the internal disk that you've chosen to put your operating system on and click Erase. Now that I'm doing Big Sur, so the recommended format is APFS. And basically I'm just going to call this Hackintosh SSD for the name. GUID partition map is appropriate. Make sure you have the right disk and then click Erase. Okay, once that's done, if you go back to show only volumes, you'll see that you have the Hackintosh SSD there. So exit out of Disk Utility, then click Reinstall macOS Big Sur. Okay, click Continue. Then you can agree to the software agreement. Agree. Then you click the Hackintosh SSD that you just created and click Continue. So let's let this sit here. This is going to take about 40 minutes and it might reboot a few times. If it's your first time installing, you may want to watch it pretty closely in case anything goes wrong. Okay, now it's going down for its first reboot. all goes well, it'll find the OpenCore installer one more time. And then it'll be default selected to the macOS installer option, and it'll automatically go right into the next step. Okay, now it's going down for another reboot. And it finds the OpenCore installer one more time. This time it's going to go back into the macOS installer. This part of the install is lots of text. Now it's going down for yet another reboot. Now this time it says it's defaulting to Hackintosh SSD. Okay, that was another reboot, and now it's going back into Hackintosh SSD. And congratulations, you made it through the install. Now it's time to set up your country or region. So I'm going to select my country, continue. I'm going to do not now for accessibility, and punch in your Wi-Fi if you have any. Like I said, I have the FenV card, so it automatically detects the Wi-Fi. And the reason why I have Wi-Fi as well as Ethernet is simply for location tracking and things like that. Also, it's very useful for Apple AirPlay. I'm not going to restore from a time machine or anything like that, but you can if you wish. So I'm going to go not now, and then sign in with your Apple ID. For this, you either create an Apple ID, or if you have one, you can use it, and that will get all your iCloud stuff going and iMessage and everything like that. But for this tutorial, I'm going to click Setup Later because I don't plan on doing anything with regards to Apple ID. And then you have to agree to the terms and conditions. And I'm just going to call this account Studio 3B and give it a password. And you can give it an optional hint. Click Continue. Click Continue for Express Setup. Crash settings can be shared with app developers if you like. Screen time. And enable Ask Siri. If you want Siri to be enabled, you can do that. I'm going to disable it. You have different themes: light theme, dark theme, and auto. Dark theme looks a lot like that, and auto means it chooses based on the time of day. So daytime it'll do a light theme, and evening and nighttime it'll do a dark theme. I'm going to do the dark. Okay, welcome to macOS Big Sur. So congratulations, give yourself a pat on the back. You're now running off of your SSD or hard drive, wherever you installed this. First things first, you're still booting from the USB. So what you want to do first is get off the USB. You want to get the installer onto the SSD so that if you take out your USB thumb drive, you could still boot the computer. First thing you're going to want to do is open up a browser, search on mountefi command, and you get this Git project by Corp Newt. And that's the one you want, Mount EFI. You go download zip, click allow. That downloads and unzips a zip file. And you want to double click this mountefi.command. Click OK. Okay, so security is blocking this command from running. So what you want to do is click Shift and click right mouse click and click Open. And that'll give you this pop-up. So then you can click Open, and that will allow the command to run. It wants to access your folder. All right, so now you've got a terminal and it asks you which disk you want to mount the EFI of. So basically every disk on a Mac OS operating system has an EFI folder. So you're going to want to do your main hard disk that you installed on. So Hackintosh SSD, I'm going to press 1, press enter, put your password in for Mac, and it'll mount that. So then you can go back to your Finder, go to EFI, and you'll see that there's nothing in here. That's because we did not install anything here yet. So all you have to do is go to USB, copy the EFI folder, and paste it into EFI. So now everything here is still in debug mode, but that's okay, we could switch out of that later. I just want to make sure you could boot from your SSD. So now that you've pasted that in the EFI location, close this and close everything. And you also want to eject your USB and then pop that out of your computer. And now click restart. And I don't like to have Windows reopen when I come back in because that's rather annoying for me. So click restart. Okay, press delete because you want to make sure you select the right drive. There is only one in my computer, but you want to select the UEFI OS on your SSD. And now obviously we made it to the OpenCore installer without the thumb drive. So now select SSD. And notice it's a lot faster because it's not going off of USB anymore. All right, you've made it. So keep the USB because in case something goes wrong, you could always recover your system. So keep that USB in a safe place. So now we're going to open up a browser and we're going to go to the Dortania OpenCore guide and open that install guide that we started in the first video. Okay, now you want to go to the post install. So click getting started, scroll down to post install, okay? And that's where we're going to get started now. So make sure everything in the install guide you followed, you're in your operating system, you're off the USB. So, okay. So here's, the guide is split into 6 parts. So universal, USB fixes, laptop specifics, cosmetics, multi-boot, and miscellaneous. So we'll go into some of these, especially universal. So security and privacy, I'm not worried about security so much, but Firewall is not something I typically rely on. So I'm going to skip that step. Fixing audio. So you want to come here if you're having problems with audio. Yet what I usually do is use an external USB sound card that is recognized by the OS without any text installed. So I'm not going to bother with the Apple ALC motherboard audio. Booting without USB. So we just did this step. I showed you how to do this right off the bat. Basically, you mount the EFI and you copy your EFI folder right in there. If you have an Apple folder already in there, you just want to copy the OC directory parallel to the Apple directory. Okay, fixing DRM for those with DRM issues like Netflix playback. I'm not going to get into this. This is probably a separate tutorial. I've never really had any issues watching Netflix, probably because I don't watch Netflix on my Mac in the first place. Fixing iServices like iMessage. This will come into play if, say, you didn't choose a unique serial number or you had some sort of problems with the Gen Symbiose. So follow this guide if you have problems with iMessage. Let's check the sleep on this and see if that works. And I usually wait for the monitor to shut off. Okay, the monitor's shut off. Now if I wiggle the mouse, I hear the computer waking up. Now I press the enter key and actually it does wake up and it comes right back in. But I'm gonna go back in the guide. Fixing sleep. So that's something I just tested as work. So power management is probably something we could focus on, but it says it's going to improve hardware idle and boosting states. So if you're concerned about power consumption and performance, this is definitely something to look into. If you're interested in this topic, we can look into it further. Please put a comment below if you want me to focus on the power management aspect of the installation. Okay, USB mapping. This part's important. So when you start you're at your Hackintosh installation, we've installed USB inject all and put XHCI port limit. Now this can cause a lot of issues, but one good thing it does is detect all the USB ports. So this is something you're gonna have to read through to understand how USB works. There's a USB 2.0 port, which usually looks like that, and there's a USB 3.0 port that looks a lot like that. So macOS has a 15 port limit. So if you need more than 15 ports, it's not recommended. Pushing the limit over 15 can cause data corruption. Let's go to system preparations. So we've booted with USB inject all, so that part is done. Symbioses that do not need ACPI renames. iMac 15.1 is my Symbiose, and that is not in the list. So we do need an ACPI rename. So I think we fall into the Broadwell and older Symbiose category. So Symbiose needing XHCI, EHC1, and EHC2 renames are, so I have iMac 16X and older. So we need all 3 renames. So let's go into the next step. Let's take XHCI and execute the following command. So copy this command, go to Launchpad, type in terminal, and paste this command into the terminal. If you see this, you do not need a rename. So if you don't see anything, which is what happened to me, I do not need a rename. Repeat this step for the other conflicting devices. Let's try EHC1. Paste that in, and I did get a lot of commands back. So EHC1 does need a rename for me. I'm gonna need a rename for EHC1. It says if you're in the latter camp, you'll want to add the ACPI renames to your config plist ACPI patch. You can find a pre-made file here. Note that you'll enable the ones you need. So simply copy over the required patches to your config plist. Open this link, and it has patches. This is XHCI, which I don't need. This is EHCI. This is EHC2. So, sorry, EHC1 and EHC2. So let me double check to see if I need EHC2 also. And I do. So I basically need EHC1 and EHC2. So I am going to go to Finder, click the Mount EFI command, select 1 for Hackintosh SSD because that's where we put the new EFI. Go to Proper Tree, from Corp Newt, download that, and open Proper Tree. Make sure you shift click open, click open. You really should not modify config.plist in anything other than Proper Tree. Let's go File, Open, go to your EFI directory, go to OC, and click config.plist. Let's go down to patch. Okay, the first patch we see is not enabled. The second patch we see is not enabled. So let's go to the patches we were looking at earlier. And it has them defined in config. Okay guys, new plan. I'm going to try to save this config as something on my desktop. So config.plist, let's put this on my desktop. Okay, now I at least have a backup of that. Now let me close this and go to my desktop. Let's try to open this up in TextEdit. Go down to patch. So ACPI, patch, and copy the ones that you need from this file. And go to the TextEdit. Now right after dictionary, under patch, make sure you do this in the right spot. Paste in these 2 dictionaries that you need. Now let's see if I can open that file up in Proper Tree properly. So file open. I'm gonna go to my desktop config.plist. I'm gonna go down to patch. And I'll see the 2 patches I just added. Now what you have to do is enable these patches because they're false by default. So true and true. So keep in mind we're working off the desktop right now, not the one in your EFI folder. Okay, let's go back to system preparation. Okay, parting ways. Now you must part into 2 sections depending on your hardware. Intel USB mapping and manual USB mapping. This guide is outdated. See USB maps README for updated information until this guide is rewritten. So let's follow that. Here we go. So let's go to run git from the terminal. So I'm going to go to terminal, I'm going to clear the screen, and I'm going to say git clone, and it wants to install Git from developer tools. So this is the first time I've ever run Git on this computer, so I'm going to install Git. Looks like this is going to take about 12 to 15 minutes. Okay, now this says the software was installed, so click done. Let's rerun our git command to make sure that works. Cloning USB map, did that. Now cd to USB map and chmod plus x USB map dot command. Okay, now it's executable. So now we can run the USB map dot command. Okay, so it says I need to rename. So actually what we need to do is rerun this command after we reboot with the config that we created with the ACPI renames. So I'm going to go to my EFI directory. This is always probably a very good practice to back up your config.plist, and I'm going to call it .old. And you can just put a date there, you know, because you're probably going to have more than one. Go to desktop, Command C, go to EFI, OC, and click Command V, and that pastes in the config.plist. So that prevents any problems. If you have any problems booting, you can always go back to your previous config plist. So let's reboot with these ACPI patch renames and try the USB map one more time. Okay, we booted without any issues. Let's put in your password. Open up a terminal, cd to USB map, and do USB map.command. All right, now it doesn't give any warnings about needing a rename because it already has the renames in it. So let's go up to Safari and go back to the Dortania OpenCore post-install guide and go to USB. Okay. We did preparations. Now let's go back to Intel USB mapping, which is where we're at. And it says the guide is outdated. We saw that last time. So let's go to USB map readme. And we just did that. So basically what I think we're doing is creating a text that is going to replace the USB inject all with a map of your actual USB ports. Okay, so what I have to do is click discover ports. There we go. So that's going to automatically discover the USB ports that are in use, and then enter to stop. All right, now that we've discovered the ports, we can click P, edit and create USB map.text. Okay, now it's asking me to make my selection. For Catalina and newer, which is what we are, let's build USB map.text. So let's go do K. Okay, found empty controllers. The following controllers have no enabled ports, and it's got 2 hubs. So basically what you want to do is, if you want all your USB ports enabled, you have to plug something into each one of them. I am going to click ignore for this one. I don't want to disable those ports because if I plug something into them later down the line, I want them to work. So I'm going to click ignore. And then it's going to ask me to write. So there we go. So we've created a USB map.text, and this is specific to the hardware and USB ports on my particular computer. So let's copy this, mount the EFI folder. So go to recents, mount EFI, mount the EFI folder, put in your password. Okay, now go to your Finder again, EFI, paste it into kex. There you go, USB map.text. Now, what you don't need anymore is USB inject all, so let's delete that, move to trash, and let's open up the config plist on our desktop, and then once we're done editing, we can copy it over again. Let's open up recents property, and go to File, Open, Desktop, config.plist, and let's do File, OC Snapshot, and let's do your EFI OC directory, which now has no longer USB inject all, but it has USB map.txt. And one more change, go down to Control F, Command F, XHCI port limit, and set this to false. Now we don't need that port limit anymore. So Command S. Okay, so close this window. We've saved the config.plist. And let's copy this plist to your EFI folder. I'm going to rename this .old2. So I recommend putting dates instead of old1 and old2 because then you can figure out when you did these. But I'm going to paste in the new config.plist and I'm going to restart. And hopefully when I restart, I have a mouse and keyboard. That's going to be the test of whether USB is working or not. Okay, miraculously, I have a mouse. All right, I have a mouse. Keyboard seems to work. You know, the true test of whether USB works is if over time you don't have any problems. If all the USB ports are working throughout the life of your usage of the computer, you've really done a good job. If you're having problems, go back to the USB map guide and revisit opening some ports that you may have accidentally disabled. Okay, let's go back to the Dortania OpenCore post-install guide. We did fixing USB. I don't have any laptop specific things to do. So basically what it comes down to is cosmetics. So we're going to add the GUI. I'm not going to do boot chime because boot chime relies on onboard audio and I'm not using onboard audio. But you could do the fancy GUI for OpenCore, which is probably what most of you want. Then you could fix resolution in Verbose. So basically we're going to put everything back to release rather than debug, and I'm not going to worry about multi-boot and boot camp. So let's just go and make this thing pretty. So add GUI and boot chime. So to get started, you're gonna need 0.5.7 or newer. So we're on 0.7.2. You'll need binary resources. Okay. And you need Open Canopy EFI. So that must be the same build as your OpenCore files. Mismatched files causes boot issues. So if you go to opencanopy.efi, let's go back to the 0.7.2 and re-download that because that's the version we're on. Oh, okay, so the resources folder is a separate, that is the OC binary data repository. So let's download that zip. And go to resources, and in here we have actual files. Great. So let's copy those 4 folders. Go to your EFI, OC, resources, and paste that in and apply to all, replace. Now you have actual audio, fonts, and everything else inside of your resources folder. You're also going to need the opencanopy.efi from the release EFI OC driver folder and get OpenCanopy and copy that and put that into your drivers. All right. Now we're going to open up our config plist in proper tree. I'm going to work on the one on the desktop. Go to recents, proper tree. Open the desktop config.plist. And we're going to go to miscellaneous boot picker mode and use external. So I'm going to go picker mode. And it says built-in, so I'm going to change that to external. And I'm going to go to miscellaneous boot picker attributes. So Control F for picker attributes, Command F. And it says 17 and it wants it to be on 17, so that's right. So picker variant is on auto, and I'm okay with auto. It's selecting icons based on the default background color, but there are other icon sets you can use. Let's take a look at them. Here's the default. That's the one I typically use. Golden Gate. Don't really see too much of a difference, but I'm sure there is a difference. I'm just going to leave it as auto for now. I'm not going to worry about boot chime or anything like that, but you can go ahead and figure that out for yourself. And I guess now what we could do is restart. We're still in debug mode. However, we may get a GUI for the picker. So I'm going to hit File, Save. And I'm going to close that, copy the config. I'm going to copy the config.plist off my desktop. I'm going to go to my EFI, OC, and I'm going to rename my current config plist to .old 3. And I'm going to paste in my new config.plist. And I'm going to reboot. Hopefully I get a GUI. Oh, so what we did was forget one step. We have to add the driver's open canopy. So let's open up recents proper tree one more time. Open your desktop config.plist. What we forgot to do is do File, OC snapshot, and select your EFI OC directory. There we go. Now Command S to save that. And now that should have added your open canopy key. So let's close that file. Let's copy this over. I've already backed up the current config.plist. So let's just paste that into here and replace that. Now let's try to boot. And look at that, we have a GUI. It does have a bit of a fat resolution to it, but I don't mind that as much. So I collect Mac SSD. We're still getting a lot of text because we're still in debug mode. Okay, log into your Mac with your password. I'd say the final steps are to replace everything in debug mode with the release version. I think we have a working setup. Go to Finder, go to Recents, open Mount EFI, and I'm going to press 1. Put in your password. Go to the Finder. Now for good luck, I am going to back up my entire folder here. I'm going to say copy. I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call this EFI backup. And this is in case something goes wrong with my getting rid of debug. So I'm pasting everything in there, including all my logs. All right, now we don't need the logs anymore, so you can delete those off of your EFI partition. So select those and select Move to Trash. Go to EFI boot. Now go to your OpenCore release version that you downloaded. Go to x64 EFI boot, copy in this file. Now we're copying in the release for over the debug and replace. Go to OC ACPI. Now we still have the given AML files in here. So if you're interested in seeing how to come up with a more manual process of generating these files, please click like on this video and add a comment below how you want me to go into how to manually do the AML files in ACPI folder. But we're going to leave those in for now. I'm going to delete my backup. I'm going to move to trash my backup config plist. I'm going to get the OpenCore EFI. And I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste that here. I'm going to replace that. And I'm going to go to drivers. And I'm going to get the open runtime from the release. and copy that, paste that here. And I think I don't know if I have a release or debug version of hfsplus.efi. So let me just, hfsplus.efi. Let me just download that. And it looks like there's only one version, so I think I'm fine with that. All right, so now tools, I'm gonna get the OpenShell, which I don't know if I need anymore, and kex. Now, all these kex I downloaded were the debug version, so I have to go and re-download everything on this computer and get the release version. So first things first, if I just go to the Dortania guide by searching on Dortania OpenCore guide and going to getting started one more time, go to gathering files, it'll give you links to all of these files. So we want to go to virtual SMC, and I'm going to download the release this time. And let's just download everything first, and then I'll copy it in. Lulu, release, download. All right. SMC, virtual SMC. That's in virtual SMC. USB map is ready to go, and whatever green. So let's get whatever green. Release. And I think that's everything I need for my build. Apple ALC. Oh, Intel Mousy. You need the Ethernet release. Okay. Great. Let's copy all these over. So Intel Mousy. .kext. I'm going to replace it with this. Whatever green. .kext. I'm going to replace it with this. Lulu. Replace that. Virtual SMC, kex. I really only need processor, Super IO, and virtual SMC, so let's copy those three, paste them in here, apply to all, replace. Great. Now we have release versions of all of our kex. Next we have to go to the config.plist and turn off debug. So let's go to the post-install guide, and let's go to fixing resolution in Verbose. Let's do this. Let's go to recents, proper tree, open your desktop, config.plist, make sure you're in desktop. Okay. Miscellaneous debug, we're going to go to Apple debug and set it to false. So let's go to miscellaneous. I'm going to command F for Apple debug, and I'm going to set this to false. NVRAM, and then boot args. So I'm going to remove -v, that's the verbose. All right, UI scale is 0.1 is standard and 0.2 is HDEF, high definition DPI. So let's go to UI scale. I'm going to command C and search for that. And it's on 1 already, that's standard resolution. So I'm not going to change that. UEFI output, we're going to set text renderer, so I'm going to copy that string and search for that. And I'm going to set, it's in built-in graphics, and that's correct. And then resolution set to max. So let's go to resolution, set that to max, which it already is. Okay, OpenCore debugging, we're going to turn off debugging. So let's go to miscellaneous debug target. And it's on 67, and they want to set us to 3 to determine, that determines less logging. And we did replace everything with release versions already. There, Command S, close that file, go to your desktop, copy that config.plist, go to your EFI folder, and I'm going to back this up one more time. I'll call it old.debug. And I'm going to Command V. So now this config.plist should have production ready, no verbose logging and everything. But let's just test that out to make sure we didn't miss any steps. So restart. Comes right to the GUI and press enter. Now you just get the Apple logo with a progress bar. And pretty quickly it comes into a well-defined progress bar and your login screen. Congratulations guys, you have a working macOS system on PC hardware. And this Hackintosh is brought to you by Studio 3B. If this was at all helpful, please click the like button, and also don't forget to subscribe. Please comment below if there's any steps that I've overlooked or you want me to dive into deeper detail. I could definitely keep this solid state hard drive available for further tutorials. Please leave a comment below, and if this was helpful, just give me a thumbs up. Thanks so much. Bye.